It's hard to imagine now, but in the 1950s, many things we considered dangerous or downright illegal were just part of everyday life. It was a different time, shaped by post-war optimism, old-fashioned values, and a whole lot of blind trust. Some of it feels charming, some of it not so much. So let's take a step back into an America where seatbelts were optional, cigarettes were doctor-approved, and rules were still being written. Number 1, unethical human experimentation. In the 1950s, the line between research and abuse was often blurred. Some government-backed studies tested new drugs, radiation, or biological agents on unsuspecting participants, many of whom were poor, institutionalized, or even children. In some cases, consent wasn't asked, and in others, it wasn't truly informed. From prison inmates to mental hospital patients, countless Americans were exposed to harmful procedures without their knowledge. These experiments were justified in the name of science and national security. But over time, public outrage grew. Today, strict ethical standards and consent laws exist to prevent such abuses. What was once considered progress is now remembered as a dark chapter in medical history. Number 2, radioactive consumer products. In the 1950s, radiation wasn't feared, it was marketed. Radium and other radioactive elements were added to everyday products like toothpaste, cosmetics, and even drinking water. Glowing watches, energy tonics, and miracle face creams promised vitality and youth, all thanks to a little radioactivity. It sounded futuristic, cutting-edge science right at your fingertips. But no one talked about the long-term effects. Radiation exposure from these items led to serious illnesses, including cancer. Back then, the dangers were either unknown or ignored. It took decades of medical evidence and public outcry to pull these products off the shelves. Today, they serve as eerie reminders that not all progress is safe. Number 3, cigarette ads featuring doctors. In the 1950s, cigarettes weren't just accepted, they were endorsed by authority figures. Magazine ads and TV commercials proudly featured doctors recommending specific brands. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette, one ad claimed. It gave smoking an air of trust, even sophistication. Hospitals had smoking lounges, waiting rooms had ashtrays, and few questioned the health risks. Tobacco companies capitalized on public trust in the medical profession, blurring the line between care and commerce. Over time, as research linked smoking to cancer and heart disease, public opinion shifted. Today, using doctors in tobacco ads is banned, and cigarette marketing is heavily restricted. But back then, a white coat was all it took to sell a puff of reassurance. Number 4, lobotomies as mental health treatment. In the 1950s, if someone struggled with depression, anxiety, or schizophrenia, one cure doctors turned to was the lobotomy. This procedure involves severing connections in the brain's frontal lobe, believed at the time to calm emotional disturbances. It was hailed as a miracle solution, quick, efficient, and oddly popular. But the results were often tragic. Many patients were left with memory loss, flat emotions, or severe cognitive decline. Some were institutionalized for life. Worse yet, the procedure was sometimes used to control behavior, not heal illness. Over time, lobotomies fell out of favor as better treatments emerged and public awareness grew. Today, they represent one of the most controversial chapters in psychiatric care. Number 5, gender-specific job ads. In the 1950s, job listings weren't just divided by industry, they were divided by gender. Open up any newspaper and you'd see it, help wanted, male, or help wanted, female. Men were offered careers in business, science, and the trades. Women, mostly secretarial work, teaching or nursing. It reflected the era's strict views on gender roles. Men as breadwinners, women as homemakers, even if they had to work. This practice limited women's access to opportunity and reinforced inequality in the workplace. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that gender-based job ads were outlawed. Today, we take for granted that a job is a job, regardless of who's applying. But back then, your career path could be determined by a single word in the classifieds. Number 6, child labor. In the 1950s, it wasn't unusual to see kids working, and not just mowing lawns or babysitting. Children delivered newspapers before sunrise, worked long hours on farms, and helped run family businesses. In some areas, they even found themselves in factories or industrial jobs. For many families, it was seen as building character and pitching in. But not all work was harmless. Without strict safety rules or age limits, children were exposed to dangerous equipment and harsh conditions. Federal child labor laws existed, but enforcement was spotty, especially in rural communities. Over time, public opinion shifted. Education became the priority, and regulations grew stronger. Today, much of that work would be considered exploitation. But back then, it was just part of growing up. Number 7, hitchhiking. In the 1950s, sticking out your thumb was a perfectly normal way to get from town to town. Teenagers, college students, and even servicemen relied on the kindness of strangers to get where they needed to go. There were no apps, no bus schedules, just the open road and a bit of trust. Hitchhiking was seen as practical, even patriotic, especially for young men in uniform. People believed in lending a hand, and drivers didn't think twice about pulling over. But that sense of safety didn't last. As violent incidents and cautionary tales emerged, the practice gained a darker reputation. Laws tightened and social norms changed. What was once a symbol of freedom slowly became a cautionary tale. Number 8, burning household garbage. In the 1950s, most homes didn't have regular trash pickup, especially in rural or suburban areas. So what did families do? They burned their garbage. Paper, food scraps, plastics, even paint cans went straight into a metal barrel out back. The smoke curled into the sky, and no one thought much of it. It was just part of daily life. But over time, people began to notice the smell and the health risks. Burning household waste released toxic chemicals into the air, polluting neighborhoods and harming lungs. As cities modernized and waste services expanded, laws were passed to ban backyard burning. Today, it's hard to imagine tossing your trash into a fire, but for many families, that's exactly how things were done. Number 9, washing mouth with soap as discipline. Back in the 1950s, if a child said a bad word or told a lie, there was a good chance they'd end up with a mouthful of soap. Parents believed it taught respect, cleaned the mouth, so to speak. It was passed down through generations and seen as a harmless, if unpleasant, punishment. Bars of soap sat near the sink, not just for hands, but for discipline. But what seemed like a moral lesson could actually be dangerous. Ingesting soap can cause nausea, irritation, and even poisoning in some cases. As parenting styles evolved, so did our understanding of what discipline should look like. Today, washing a child's mouth out with soap is widely seen as abusive and certainly illegal in many places. Number 10, marriage bars for women. In the 1950s, a woman getting married didn't just change her name. She often lost her job. Many employers enforced what were known as marriage bars, policies that required women to resign once they tied the knot. These rules were especially common in schools, offices, and government positions. The idea was that married women belonged at home, not in the workforce. It reinforced the belief that men were the primary earners, and that a working wife was taking a job from someone else. For countless women, it meant choosing between a career and a family. Over time, legal challenges and shifting attitudes brought these policies to an end. But for a generation of women, marriage meant a goodbye letter to independence. Number 11. Radioactive cosmetics. In the 1950s, beauty and science walked hand in hand, and sometimes a little too closely. Cosmetic companies infused face creams, powders, and lotions with radium, believing it could rejuvenate the skin and restore youthful glow. Ads promised radiance in more ways than one. Women applied these glowing products daily, unaware that each dab came with a dangerous dose of radiation. At the time, the risks were brushed aside in favor of marketing hype. But prolonged exposure to radioactive ingredients led to serious health problems, including radiation burns and even cancer. Eventually, the science caught up with the sales pitch. Today, radioactive cosmetics are banned, but in mid-century America, glowing skin had a far more literal meaning. Number 12. Book banning and censorship. In the 1950s, protecting American values often meant restricting what people could read. Books that challenged traditional roles, addressed race, or hinted at sexuality were pulled from shelves. School boards banned novels. Libraries locked away controversial titles. Even comic books were targeted, blamed for corrupting the minds of youth. Authors and educators were accused of spreading dangerous ideas, sometimes even called un-American. It was a time when censorship wasn't just common, it was patriotic. The fear of moral decline and communism fueled a wave of literary suppression. Over time, free speech advocates pushed back, fighting for the right to read and think freely. Today, book banning still sparks debate, but in the 50s, it was practically policy. Number 13. Segregation laws, also known as Jim Crow laws. In the 1950s, racial segregation wasn't just tolerated, it was the law in many parts of America. Black and white citizens were forced to use separate schools, bathrooms, restaurants, and even water fountains. Separate but equal was the phrase used, though in reality, the facilities and treatment were anything but equal. These laws upheld deep racial divides and denied basic civil rights to millions of Americans. It was a daily reminder that freedom wasn't truly for all. The civil rights movement began to challenge this injustice. But in the early 50s, segregation was still firmly in place. Today, those signs are gone, but their legacy remains etched into American history. The 1950s were a time of hope, tradition, and transformation. But not everything from that era has aged well. What was once normal is now unthinkable, even illegal. Looking back, it's a reminder of how far we've come and how much we've learned. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history. If you remember these things or learn something new, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your memories in the comments.